that they will have no choice but to go for all-out war, because otherwise they believe if the US does choose to strike them, it will become open season on Iran, and that they will seek to render it a place that can be struck at any time of Israel and the US's choosing, much like Syria or Lebanon.
Now, Iran, where the supreme leader, Ali Husseini Khamenei, has reportedly reorganized the country's military command and put succession plans in place after the last year conflict with the United States and the continuing tension about what may happen next. This comes as President Trump increased pressure on Tehran over its nuclear program in his State of the Union address overnight.
We are in negotiations with them. They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen.
President Trump speaking overnight on Capitol Hill. Catherine Philp is the Times World Affairs editor and joins us now. Hello to you, Catherine.
Hi, John.
Hi. Do tell us more about this story.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So I wrote this story because I felt there was an absence of coverage of essentially the view from Iran. I mean, there's been a lot of coverage of exactly what on earth Trump believes he's going to achieve in Iran. It's very unclear. We've certainly had a lot of commentary on that. I wanted to dive in with people who knew, insiders and observers, about what Iran was thinking and how they were responding to these threats. And really, the consistent theme amongst them all is that whilst Iran is not seeking a war, it has not learned lessons from its recent entanglements with the US and Israel that would lead it to compromise. So in Iran, the picture is that they are being asked to capitulate by Washington, who have indeed used that very word themselves, that they're being asked to capitulate on a number of issues on which they are unlikely to, what issues that would, in their mind, betray the revolution and leave Iran open to attack. And that when they have responded with limited retaliation in the past, including last year when they were attacked by Israel and the US, that didn't protect them from the US coming back and threatening them again, and indeed Israel. And so the lessons that they've walked away from and are, as I reported, are preparing for, are that they will have no choice but to go for all-out war, because otherwise they believe if the US does choose to strike them, it will become open season on Iran, and that they will seek to render it a place that can be struck at any time of Israel and the US's choosing, much like Syria or Lebanon.
This is so interesting, Catherine. Does it then just reinforce the impression that seems to be around, having got out, that Trump and the American side don't quite understand what's going on in the minds of the leadership in Tehran? And we heard that comment from Steve Witkoff, the president's senior emissary and advisory, when he said that President Trump was curious, I think that was the word, about why Iran had not capitulated with this massive force, a double aircraft carrier strike force, just within range now of hitting Tehran. And then you are telling us that, well, the Ayatollah, the man at the very, very top, is contemplating becoming a martyr, being killed in what he would see as a holy cause, and preparations are being made for an attack. Does it mean then that Iran, at the most senior level, are, well, if not sanguine about the possibility of an American strike, they're ready to face it and believe they can deal with it?
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction, John. It's not that anyone is suggesting to me that Iran wants the war. It's simply that if it is brought upon them, the likely response will be very aggressive. Now, we've seen that with the most recent threat to the regime in the form of the protests that took place, that Iran went, if you forgive the mixing of the metaphors, but went nuclear on those protesters and massacred them at a level that we've never seen before from the Iranian regime, as homicidal as it is, as one commenter said to me. We've never seen that level of slaughter take place. It so rapidly. It's more than 7,000 people in little more than 48 hours. I mean, it was suggested to me that actually Trump's the external threats, the threats from Trump may have actually hastened that because of the fact that he had threatened to intervene because of the protests.
Yeah.
They thought, well, let's close the protests down as fast as we can. And I think that I think the jeopardy from this is enormous. We're talking about the chances of there being an all-out regional war, that the Americans are not in control of the escalation, that there is a naive belief in Washington that they can control the way that this war goes. I think that what we're hearing from the preparations the Iranians are making is that is not going to be in their gift if that strike is made. Now, one of the things, again, is we don't really know what the Americans hope to achieve if they strike. And I mean, it's not clear that they know either.
Yes.
It was described to me that they had essentially walked all these military assets into the region and thought afterwards, whereas you're meant to think first. So Trump, in essentially a fundamental misunderstanding of the psyche of the regime, moved those assets in place in order to force them into capitulation, possibly because he has had successes in doing that recently, and he's managed to effect change in places like Venezuela without the loss of American lives. And so, that's going to give someone a bit of a sugar high, and it's possible that he's simply replicating that situation without really taking into account the nature of this regime, which could not be more different to the one in Venezuela, for example. I don't think we're going to see a cooperative deputy like Delcy Rodriguez suddenly pop out of this fossilized system of the Islamic regime. That I just don't see that happening. There's too many people who are too bound up in this, too ideological. There isn't the same. They're also kleptocrats, but I don't see the deal-making room for maneuver that there was with Venezuela. And I think that all of these things have not been factored in. I think it's fairly instructive that the Trump administration actually doesn't have any Iran experts left.
Yes.
It got rid of them or didn't recruit them in the first place. And the only people it's got doing this negotiation are people who know nothing about Iran. And are rather overstretched, as we may have discussed before. Witkoff and Kushner are also dealing with Ukraine, Gaza. I mean, these are not specialists, and Iran is a very specialized situation.
Yeah. This insight, Catherine, into Iranian thinking is just so useful and instructive if we're hypothesizing about what might happen next. If the Iranians are, preparing their military response to an attack, what might we be talking about here? Are we talking about direct strikes at Israel, because that's clearly an option? Are we talking about proxies being unleashed? Are we talking about strikes at American military bases in the region? Maybe all of the above?
I think all of the above. Firstly, Israel, because of and I know that nerves are high in Israel over that, I don't think amongst the leaders, but certainly amongst the population, people are, feeling a certain amount of dread, because actually the Iranian missile strikes on Israel during the 12-day war in last June were surprisingly effective, if by Iranian standards, by the standards of the fact that Israel has extraordinary air defenses, has Iron Dome. Quite a lot still got through. A lot of damage was done. I think something like 36 people were killed, and there were, hundreds of injuries. So they can inflict some damage. They can also inflict damage on American bases in the region. Now, the flip side of this is obviously this will escalate and invite a response, a greater response from the Americans at a time when it's clear Trump doesn't want that. But it appears to me from the kind of planning that's going on in Tehran that is a risk that the Iranians, the regime, sorry, I think it's important to make that distinction, but it seems to be a risk that the regime is prepared to take because they see this as fairly existential. And the issue of proxies, interestingly, so obviously the proxies were hugely damaged in the last 2 years of war with Israel, and Israel hit Hezbollah and hit other proxies, including in Syria. That means they are damaged and they are not able to respond in ways that they might have been before. But what happens next if a new front opens? Those proxies are only going to be more damaged. So there's a kind of use it or lose it factor with the proxies. You might as well, if you wish to use them, go all out now because they're only going to be more damaged in the future. And this is similar with the issue of the ballistic missile program. If Iran thinks that its ballistic missile program is in existential jeopardy, which it is because Benjamin Netanyahu went to Mar-a-Lago in December and got explicit permission from Trump to hit that program anytime he likes. So why not shoot those things off before they are taken out for good? Then you send a message, or you essentially tie Trump down in an ugly quagmire that he sought to avoid, one that he's not going to want as he approaches midterms coming up in November later this year. And the history that they see suggests to them that, Trump has this reputation of taco. Trump always chickens out. Well, you can chicken out after you've done something. You don't have to chicken out before. And Trump did that last year when he got bound up with the Houthis before this June war began with Iran. That confrontation in the Red Sea over the Houthi threat to shipping, that went on for a month and it cost the US over $1 billion. The Houthis nearly sank an American warship during that confrontation. It was extremely expensive, extremely consequential, and Trump backed down. He just left after a month. He proved that he doesn't like getting caught into these long-running conflicts in the Middle East, for which there is almost no domestic support, only amongst the most hawkish of his congressional party. So I think these are the calculations that Iran is making right now: tie them down and punch them. And they know they can't win a war, but I don't think that's what they're banking on happening. Yes. They can make the cost too high to the US.
Catherine, every answer you give so comprehensively just raises 8 more questions. So I just hope we can talk again really, really soon. You're certainly going to be invited back before you know it. Catherine Philp there, World Affairs editor at The Times.